My God, Murphy, you look like hell.
I pushed myself up from a puddle of drool and slumped back into my chair, struggling to focus. The colonel stood across the desk from me, slowly shaking his head. I hadn't seen Colonel Roy Dobbs since he kicked me out of his detective agency, where I'd been one of his young star recruits. He'd been my mentor in the PI business, but we parted on bad terms and had avoided each other ever since. Now, 15 years later, he was standing in my office, unexpected and uninvited, and I was seeing 3 of him. The 3 colonels had lost the remaining color in their hair and looked a little thicker through the waist. Their faces had acquired a few dozen additional wrinkles, but the jaws were still firm and thrust forward. The 6 deep-set blue eyes hadn't lost any of their malicious glint, and the acid smiles were every bit as smug and infuriating as I'd remember them. I watched through horribly pulsating eyes and mirage-like waves of nausea as the 3 old men gradually merged into one. "You caught me on a bad day," I said. "I forgot to take my Flintstones vitamins. I was slurring, damn it. I'm probably talking too loud." The colonel stepped around to where I was slumped precariously and sat down with one leg upon the desk.
Looks like I caught you in the middle of a bender.
"This isn't a bender. This is nighttime." Without warning, my chair lurched to the left, forcing me to grab for the desk and severely disrupting my already impaired equilibrium. I closed my eyes and waited for the room to stop spinning. The colonel's proximity wasn't helping the unsettled feeling in my stomach. Maybe a drink would calm things down. I opened my eyes and saw a pair of bottles moving together around my desk like synchronized swimmers. Unfortunately, there was only one real bottle. I guessed correctly, snagged the 5th of bourbon, and unscrewed the cap. "Want a drink?" I asked. "This stuff isn't half bad once you get used to it." The colonel smiled and looked piously towards the floor, his hands folded on his thigh.
No thanks. I haven't had a drink in 8 years.
He glanced back up at me too quickly.
One day I looked in the mirror and decided I needed to make a few lifestyle changes. Quit smoking, quit drinking. Now I'm looking forward to a nice long retirement on a tropical island with a tribe of beautiful young women.
Wasn't an attractive mental image, at least the part about him. But at least he had a dream to keep himself going. Made me wish I had one. He chuckled and rubbed his hands together.
Enough about me, Tex. Tell me about you. How's everything going? Bad as it looks?
I steadied myself as conversationally as possible. Depends. What is today? Saturday? Saturdays aren't too bad. I don't usually get really suicidal until Wednesday or Thursday. I sloshed a few fingers of firewater in the general direction of my glass and attempted to fix pointed stare at the colonel. "So was there something you wanted, or did you just come by to sprinkle a little salt into the open wounds of my pathetic life?" The colonel chuckled again, insincerely.
Now why would I want to do a thing like that, Tex? Just because you ratted on me, got me suspended, humiliated me in front of my peers.
Suddenly his thick finger was in my face.
You sold me out, you son of a bitch!
My head felt like it was going to split in 2. I considered asking him to keep the volume down, but decided it might make him talk louder. The colonel paused to run a hand through his white, still thick hair, his eyes burning through me. He stood up and walked away, his hand now massaging the back of his neck. After a moment, he turned back to face me, and the smug grin slowly reappeared.
Of course, that's all in the past, right? I quit hating you for it weeks ago. As you know, I got reinstated and everything worked out fine. Still the top agency in the city.
Glad to hear it. I took a completely unnecessary slug from my glass and wiped my mouth off the back of my sleeve. The colonel smirked and returned to his perch on the corner of my desk.
So what happened to you, Tex?
He asked without a hint of sympathy.
I heard you were doing pretty well for a while. Solved a couple of decent cases. The Linsky murder, the Alexander kidnapping. What's your problem? You're one of those people who can't live with success?
I can live with it, I mumbled. I'm just not ready to make a long-term commitment. I leaned down to my armrest and pinched the bridge of my nose with my thumb and forefinger. I needed a whole bottle of aspirin. The colonel didn't respond immediately. I finally looked up at him and saw the condescending look on his face. It got under my skin, and the paint thinner coursing through my veins didn't help. You know what I was 15 years ago? I asked, suddenly angry. I was a stupid, idealistic kid. If you weren't such a bastard, you could have tried to understand why I did what I did. You were the one who was breaking the law, not me. I mean, now I understand. I should have kept my mouth shut. But it was just an innocent, stupid mistake. You didn't have to cut me off. The colonel leaned down and stuck a gnarled finger back into my face.
The hell I didn't, Tex. You know why? Because apparently you never learned the #1 rule of a PI. Never, ever betray your friends. Friendship and trust go beyond blood or genetics or politics. You find out who your friends are, then you hold on to them. A friend you can trust is a precious commodity to people like me and you.
I didn't need the lecture. For starters, the first rule of a PI is never fall in love with a client. And secondly, there was nothing I wanted more than to have a few trustworthy relationships. Unfortunately, I seemed to have a lousy trustometer, especially when it came to women and clients. One woman in particular, Sylvia Linsky, my ex-wife. After the colonel booted me out and I'd gone into business for myself, she'd been my first client. Now she was the reason I had a new #1 PI rule and a small drinking problem. She recently left me for a guy I hired to do some reupholstering. Now I was sleeping on a cot in my office, with nothing to show for a 5-year marriage but severe trust issues and 2 beautifully reupholstered office chairs. With one last piercing stare, the colonel stood up.
You gotta pull yourself together, Tex. You're gonna get a call soon. Get cleaned up and be ready when it comes.
He crossed the room, then paused at the door.
You're too good to end up like this. You got no excuse.
He opened the door.
I'll send you a postcard from the island.